And I will be putting a few more things in the group chat as far as instructions. If you didn't see it, usually you don't see the stuff that's typed in before you join. So I will put a little how-to in here again right now in the chat, some of the stuff I just mentioned. And my name is Jeff Kamen. This is Books and Bars. If you're here for that work meeting or for pub night, this is not that, although Lisa and Andrew are here for pub night. So you can speak with them about that when they're done choking on their chicken wings or whatever just happened, if you missed it in the start. We hope they're okay. I see their hand is up. So I'm gonna call on them, hoping that, you know, they're not choking. So Lisa or Andrew, are you with us tonight? I'm calling on you.
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Welcome back.
I finished the book this morning, and I'm really of two minds about it. So, so I enjoyed the storytelling, but I didn't particularly enjoy the story all that much. Like, I found it really easy to read this book. I liked the characters. I liked the way that she told the story, but I was confused by where she was going with it. And I thought the story itself was a bit of a mess. That, you know, it just, you know, it was kind of this peripheral, I mean, it was clearly a take on Bernie Madoff. It was, you know, it was almost a steal. And I'll get to that, you know, my thinker point tonight is on the Bernie Madoff part of this. But you know, it was like two different books for me. It was like this retelling of the Bernie Madoff story with some fake names and some adjustments to the story to, I don't know, make it her own, surrounded by these other characters that were very interesting. And so I really liked the Vincent character, really liked the Paul character, really wanted to know a lot more about them. And then there was this big Ponzi scheme that I already knew a lot about sitting right in the middle. And when I mean I knew a lot about it, I mean, like, I knew some of the details were just verbatim. So there really was a 17th floor in the Bernie Madoff thing. You know, he got 150 years, he didn't get 170 years, but, you know, not too much of a difference. Why even bother to change it in that kind of thing? The children turned him in. It was a child, it was a girl. And, you know, it really felt like she was kind of telling trying to tell this interesting story around something that she stole, frankly, ripped from the headlines. And my interesting thought about this is that when it gets to the point where Vincent is going to the concert where Paul has stolen her videos in order to use for his concerts and his compositions, I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be ironic or if it was like projection, because it was like she was taking this, you know, real world thing and barely changing it and making a commercial aspect out of it, you know, in order to sell to us based on her, you know, her second book and all this kind of stuff. When really there wasn't anything real unique or interesting about the Ponzi scheme and the description of it that you couldn't have gotten on a Frontline episode or just a general understanding of what happened with Bernie Madoff. And then there's these characters that have these kind of ghost tales and kind of this mystical thing going on. And so I'm not sure if it was like a stroke of genius on her part, like the joke's on us. Like, here we are reading this thing, and yeah, you know, it's kind of obvious that I ripped this off the headlines, but, you know, yeah, you're still reading it and you're still interested in it, because I didn't dislike the book at all. I mean, I really enjoyed reading it, and I enjoyed every section, but in the whole, I found it pretty unsatisfying as like a story. Like I enjoyed it, but I didn't think it was particularly great. And Lisa's saying I'm going on too long, but there's only one other thing I just want to mention.
Yeah.
only one other hand up. So.
And Andrew, you're not going on too long. I appreciate all of your comments. You give me a lot, like each one, I'm like, yep, I got to remember, I want to speak to that. So I'll just try to hit a couple of the things that you brought up that sparked something for me. Emily St. John Mandel, she has 4 previous novels. We read Station 11 with Books and Bars. That was a finalist for the National Book Award. It's been brought up a lot this year during the pandemic because it is about a pandemic and a virus that wipes out 99% of the population. A very retroactively even more timely book. Doing press for this book, she's had to mostly talk, people want to go back and talk about Station 11. Part of that I do think Station 11 is more compelling than this one was. But I initially had sort of a negative reaction myself about this book. There are many things about it that have stuck with me though, and I've been thinking about it now since I've finished it. And I'm not saying it's bad. I am saying it's not what I thought. And it does seem like she's combined a couple different things. She has talked about how initially she wanted to write something about Bernie Madoff and the Ponzi scheme, but then she doesn't outline anything. And she's like, somewhere along the line, it became a ghost story. And she tried to do both, and not necessarily ghost in what we normally call a ghost. There is certainly a little bit of that aspect to it, but how things like our regrets haunt us, and how this life that we didn't lead, like what is, if we didn't do this, what would have happened? There's so much about the counter life that's brought up in this, and this idea of, kind of 2 paths and you take one, and what if you took the other one? Some of it works to different degrees. There were times where I was very invested in a certain character, and then I don't know if I was going to ever hear more or really get back to what I wanted to. And there were sections where I was like, I'm kind of losing it. And I thought, this really needs to stick the landing, so to speak, or it really needs to kind of come together. And my wife and I were listening to it together, and she turned to me when it ended, and she's like, I think she stuck the landing. And at first, I didn't know what she was talking about, because I didn't agree with her. I thought she was talking about something else. But she was immediately reviewing the book. She's like, I think she stuck the landing. And for a couple seconds, I was like, what are you talking about? And then I was like, oh, you literally mean you really like the ending of this book. Okay. Because I'm not sure. I did like the ending, but I actually didn't care about any of the Ponzi scheme stuff either myself. And it sounds like you were kind of over that too. I mean, like, yeah, that's the news. It's interesting.
I enjoyed that she was paying attention to it, because that was an interesting topic to me. It just felt like she was regurgitating to me something that had already, that you could have got in a newspaper article or something like that about the situation. I never said to myself, I want to stop reading this book. I was interested in finishing the book, but at the end, I was kind of left a little bit like, this wasn't a great book. I didn't waste my time. There were some good, interesting things about this book, but it was a little unsatisfying at the end. But overall, I thought it was good. I mean, there were several sections where I really thought, the storytelling and the points of reference and the things that she brought up, the insights that she brought up were great. It just didn't quite stick all together. I think it was a little disjointed, and the story, it felt like it was a little bit of a mess. The story part of it.
Thanks, Andrew. Andrew, we do have some other hands up now. So I see Courtney's hand is up. Courtney, are you with us? May I unmute you? Can you talk to us, Courtney?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes.
So I agree with a lot of what's been said already. I feel like I've never enjoyed reading a book so much that then when I got to the end, I was like, no, actually, I didn't really like that book. That like she builds these characters, and the actual like act of reading it was super enjoyable, and I would like get into chapter by chapter. But really, ultimately, then at the end, it felt like more of like a series of sort of like short stories, vignettes. Some kind of like went on longer than another, and I was really expecting some sort of like big tie-in, some big like purpose why all of these stories were told, but it really seemed like more of just a series of like loose coincidences than anything else. So I feel like, yeah, I didn't feel like she stuck the landing. Like I was expecting some sort of like purpose behind this, like a big reveal about like, oh, why was the message written on the glass, or like how does this all come together? Um, and then there was, yeah, the light like dabbling with ghosts. I was like, okay, now we're going into that sphere. So it seemed like it was a little bit all over the place. With the Ponzi scheme, that's really interesting to hear about, like the parallels to the big real life story. But even that one, that I feel like that was the most significant chunk of the book in the middle. And as I was reading it, I was like, where are these characters coming from? They didn't really. We were just going into big stories of individuals' lives that then like didn't tie into anything else. I think, yeah, she's a super talented writer. Station 11 was one of my favorite books that we read a couple years ago. But yeah, I was kind of left without that satisfying conclusion or reason behind it.
Yeah, and Station 11 is one that I've thought about. I've picked it up a couple times and like flipped through it, and I've thought about like, is this good to read it right now, or would it be too much? And she's actually taken to Twitter to telling people, just don't read it right now, because people are like, why did you trick me into reading this during this? This is horrible. And some people are, and she's like, it came out years ago. She's like, don't read it right now. Like, absolutely, if it's is gonna, whatever. She's like, I don't want to hear about it. But
it was different times when it came out.
Yeah, but I love Station 11. Station 11 is being developed for a TV series, which I believe is going to be on HBO Max. And so maybe, there'll be even more desire to reread around that time or something. But yeah, there were times where I guess she has said the idea with all these different characters is to kind of show how I think most of them don't end up happy. And it's pretty bleak. The endings are not good for most of these characters. I think the only one who is halfway decent or happy or feeling somewhat satisfied, I think his name is Walter, who stays at the hotel and he like listens to music and reads books, and he doesn't really go out and like, I don't know, try to make too big of a change or something. It's almost like the people that make these big changes end up unhappy. And I don't know if she's trying to say something about like, you got up too far off your path or something, or this, you were supposed to do something else. You tried this and it was like this, choose your own adventure, and you ended up unhappy or dead, that sort of a thing, or in jail, as opposed to, this person did this. I don't know, but it's a lot of bleak, unhappy characters in sad situations. But yeah, I see Pete's got his hand up. Pete, are you with us? Talk to us, Pete.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, everybody.
Pete, I'm surprised you're not in front of Four Seasons Total Landscaping. I really thought that's where you'd be.
That's it. This is actually, we have a biggest shed in the backyard, and that's what COVID purchased there, that heater.
Okay. Excellent.
You're all welcome to come over and sit outside, socially distance.
Nice outdoor books and bars, maybe.
Yes. And then, yeah, one thing that this reminded me of, in my past life, I was, I managed bookstores, first for B. Dalton and then for Barnes and Noble, and met a lot of authors. And one of the things that I think is interesting about this discussion, and Carolyn and I have not finished the book yet. We're still about 2/3 of the way in, but we came here to see if like, well, should we, it's like, let's listen to the discussion and see if we finish it. But the, because Vincent just got on, she just went to sea, we're at that point in the book. But but like Andrew was saying, and others, the point is that where the writing, of course, is excellent. And I think she's brilliant. She, as an author, her wordsmithing, the way she carves out things is great. And I would love to be in a discussion with her sometime about this, where I know this happens to authors, is they get upset, like these characters land in their imagination and they can't stop themselves. They have to weave these things, and it becomes a compulsion sometimes. And it felt like I was wondering if that was what's going on, is like, she started with, she had the the Bernie Madoff character, and then she had this set of characters around him that she just like the character Vincent. It sounds like something that she was just somehow captivated her in a way that like she just couldn't stop her imagination from running with it. But yeah, so and planes don't always land with that problem, and I've had authors talk to me about that before too. It was like where they were surprised characters went in a direction they ultimately went, and it's an interesting artistic process. So
Thanks, Pete. First of all, I thought you were actually going to tell us like something like that, you believe you do have some past lives and that you were once a pharaoh or something. I was really excited, or that maybe you worked at a landscaping store. But that's really cool, actually, that you do have that book background. And you bring up a couple points. Thanks for reminding me. Stuff that I heard Mandel say is that the Vincent character, sort of unwittingly, once again, she feels she has written a character that is pretty close to herself. Emily St. John Mandel herself never graduated high school. So there's a long story there. She went into dance. She got her GED. She has kind of a interesting, varied background. And she said she often does write a woman who is similar to herself in that way, but doesn't intend to do that, but it kind of happens. Now, did anyone notice this though? Because I didn't, it had been so long. A lot of the characters are actually in Station 11. And the idea is that because of these counter lives or these possible different paths they've taken, this is just a possibility of their pre or post, who knows, Station 11 life. The characters share the names, at least, of some of the characters. I don't know how much of a connection there really were, because I didn't get it because of the time between the two books. They didn't stand out to me, but in doing the research for this, I found out. So I'm especially interested if anyone did catch that, and if they see any direct connections and can kind of say, oh, this character did this in one and this in the other. From what I've read, it's kind of like, okay, they have the same name, but since this whole book takes on this idea of, possible ghosts and counter lives and stuff, they're just like, this might be the same character, or, whatever. She just named these people the same thing, which is kind of confusing if you are a huge fan of the one and you just read it and you put the connection together. So if anyone caught that, love to hear that. But thanks, Pete. I see Evelyn has her hand up. Evelyn, are you with us? Talk to us, please.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
Jeff, I was going to address that a little bit.
Awesome.
Before I read this book, I actually ended up listening to a podcast interview with Emily St. John Mandel. She was interviewed on Conversations with Tyler, which I don't know if anyone is familiar with that podcast, but Tyler, I don't remember his last name, is an economist, and he mostly interviews economists and people in the finance world. But I think he was interested in the probably financial economy aspect of the story, and interviewed her. And she does mention specifically that Miranda, if you can remember, she was the Lewis's old secretary that ended up getting his job and his office and whatever. She worked in the shipping company. And at some point during her point of view, or I don't know if it's her point of view, but like while she's mentioned, they do talk about, she mentions gosh, now it might have been Vincent that thought about it, but it's just like, they mention like a virus in Georgia and what would have happened if that virus kept going. And that's kind of the story of Station 11. So that's where that is. So there's that direct connection there. So I was looking for it when I read the book. So yeah, I did notice it. Yeah, I thought that was cool. She did, like you said, talk about the idea of she keeps on thinking about her characters and has like stories for them even after it's written down. This book really, really reminded me of the Visit from the Goon Squad. Like, it was very similar. If anyone's read that book, I think of
We did that years ago for Books and Bars, and I
Okay.
think that's an excellent point. I agree with you. And I saw a list of further reading, like if you like this, read this, and Goon Squad is towards the top of that list.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jennifer Egan, did a better job like wrapping things and making a comprehensive story. But as everyone said, I think the characters were compelling, the writing was fantastic. And then there were sort of two themes that I thought were threaded through the book. The first is the idea of that alternate life or that counter life.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is a point where Vincent is talking to her boyfriend or whatever he is, and she's like, oh, maybe I'll do that in the next life. And I feel like Vincent is the most successful in this book, in the sense that she has multiple lives. She has her 3-year period with Jonathan, and she's able to like sever that completely and move on to a new life with the trading, the cook on the ship and whatever. And she's got that, so she's got like these different like sections of her life that aren't even connected in any way, and nothing really crosses over. So she somehow manages to do that. I wonder if we should be jealous of her for that or what. But and then the other theme that I saw in the book was wealth or lack thereof. There was a lot of like, what does money give you? What is it that mean? What does wealth mean? And why do people want to be wealthy? And like different characters seem to have like different reasons. I mean, I know Vincent talks about how like that lack of stress, the needing to not think about money is compelling to her. Yeah, I wonder what anyone else thinks about that.
Some excellent points on some of the themes there. I picked up on some of those too. Some of the other ones I thought of, when you talk about wealth, I think the idea of theft is so key. Think of how haunted Paul is by the theft of Vincent's videos, and how he basically makes his career off of, using her work. And then he, constantly thinks about that conversation he's going to have that he never gets to have with her. That, basically, it ruins for him, I think, any sort of enjoying of the success that he had, because he knows in his heart that it's not really all his, and he has to answer for that at some point, but he never really gets to, at least, in person. He might see her ghost, at some point at the end. But yeah, and speaking of ghosting, there's think of the scene in the bar where Vincent is the bartender, and she sees Morella at the bar, and then basically wants to hide, wants to leave, but at some point even says her name, like just wants to be acknowledged, like, and I don't know, I took it as that Morella character was completely like, that's her revenge on her. Like, yeah, she knows who she is, but she's not going to acknowledge Vincent in any way. Like, she just completely ghosts her into her face, and then she ends up walking off that job and never comes back. So, Rebecca, I see you on my screen and your hand is up. It's perfect that it works out that way. Are you ready to speak with us, Rebecca? Please talk to us. I think you were unmuted, and then I just muted you. So let me unmute you now.
You had asked me to unmute myself, so I did, but then you didn't. Yeah. Anyway, Jeff, one note I'm going to tell you, your light is interfering with your camera, so you're getting streaks. So
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. It looks like starlight coming down on me.
okay. If
You know, and I'm trying to put my head between the two. Do you see that?
I'm totally fine with it. I'm just giving you that heads up. I did not like this book, and the reason why I did not is I felt it was too clever. And I think she is agreed with everyone. She writes compelling characters, all that. This is my conceit or thought of what she was trying to do, is that she shattered the story. And then she wrote little bits, picked up little panes, looked at it, wrote a little bit, put it down, picked up another pane. So the structure was incredibly difficult to follow. And it caused me pain as a result, because I couldn't keep a narrative going. I couldn't keep, you had to have a very high level view to see where everything was going. She went going back and forth in time, going back and forth between characters. So I thought that her conceit was trying to make it shattered and then trying to pull it together. And, we were discussing a pre-book club to, who liked it, but it felt uncomfortable to me reading this. I said it was like reading broken glass, but and I would have been much more into it had I cared at all about what any of the characters were doing. I mean, any of the creative types, like Paul doing the music, it didn't talk at all about any joy that he might have in the creation. It was all that guilt that you talked about, and his drug use and whatever, so it was nothing happy. Vincent, who was the most, I don't know, most like a protagonist that we had in a way. Even she was kind of bored with her life, I felt, and was really like, okay, well, I'll go here. She didn't struggle. She didn't try to have what's the word? She didn't progress. She just went from one situation to the next. And it felt like her at the end, with the reveal of Paul, with him doing the glass and all that kind of stuff. It was, I don't know. I just didn't care at the end, and I didn't find it compelling. And so I do not think she stuck the landing. I do think she got lost in the structure of it. I agree that the Bernie Madoff ripoff story was boring. I mean, I maybe it would be more compelling if we knew more or less. I'm not sure which we would need to know. But anyway, so I am not a fan of this, but I will go back and reread Station 11 and any other books she might do.
Yeah, I agree that I will read other stuff by her. I just don't, and I don't think it's that I'm just judging this against Station 11. They're just, I agree with a lot of what you said. I didn't care that much. I mean, I liked Vincent. I did care about what happened to her. Paul, I mean, again, the character doesn't have to be likable, but whether you care about what happened to them or not. I was interested in Paul and how much he liked that band and then mimicked them, especially because he liked the woman in the band, and how interesting it was and unfortunate that, he passed along the bad drugs that ended up, killing one of their members and then sending them off in a different direction. But the things that I was really interested in that grabbed me then didn't really, thread through as much. And by the time, we really got into the Ponzi scheme, it was just like, you kind of know the beats of that if you knew the news story. And I just wasn't super into that. And unless it came back to the characters I did care more about, was more interested in. But yeah, you a lot of people are agreeing with you in the chat, how well you said it about how she shattered the story, and it was like you were reading broken glass. And maybe there's something to that. I mean, whether that works or is enjoyable or not, or more of an interesting experiment. But yeah, one of the things that I've seen Mandel talk about in interviews more recently is how now she has young children, and how she feels there's books that she has written earlier in her life that she couldn't write now, or that she would write differently. And it might be interesting to see what she writes later in life now with I don't know, just being a mom. Not that is the be all end all or whatever I'm saying, but she has said herself that there's things that she has written that she looks back at, like she said, there's a character of a mom or a character with a baby in other books, and she's like, I didn't know any, like, that's so poorly written. That is not a mom. That is not, that's just a prop that I wrote, like this person having a baby, that sort of thing. And she said, and there's just things that I wouldn't write now. And I'm interested to see, is Station 11, she's almost hinted that maybe it would be very different, if she wrote it now, or even maybe she couldn't. It would be too dark, too bleak. But yeah, with this one, I don't know. It's certainly providing some discussion. I see Kara's got her hand up. So Kara, talk to us. I'm unmuting you.
I was just typing in a response to Lisa and Andrew about the contemporary historical fiction. So I'll answer verbally instead, but The Grapes of Wrath was written during the Great Depression, and I feel like that would hold up as like contemporary historical fiction. And another book I just read is called A Large Expanse of Sea, and it takes place, I guess it's 20 years ago now at this point, but it takes place like right after 9/11, and it's about a teenage Muslim girl. And I thought it was very excellent, but maybe that counts more as history rather than contemporary these days. It feels still contemporary to me. I feel like Rebecca said all that I could say. She was like speaking to my soul about how I felt about this book. But unlike her, I haven't read Station 11, and I don't feel like I will be compelled to ever read another one of Emily, her name, last name, her books.
Kara, I gotta tell you, honestly, I can't recommend Station 11 more highly.
Yeah.
If I look back over the last 5-10 years of Books and Bars, that's a top 10 Books and Bars book for me. Honestly,
if I read it, it will be after the pandemic is sort of finished, I think. But I don't know. I just was not engaged by, like, I guess, like, she was not a bad writer, but like, I didn't like the characters. I didn't like any of the plots, really. They didn't go together, and it felt like there was no point to any of it. If anyone, like, I guess there's themes, but like, what's the point? I would love if someone had the answer to that. Like, why? Why does this exist? I will say, going back to what Evelyn was saying about the money, I don't know that it made it worthwhile for me to read it, but I liked the point they made about how money is its own country. And I kind of liked how they put that, and it came up at least twice in different characters, and maybe like more than that, like that specific phrase, like money is its own country. And I thought, like, that's a very good way of putting it. Like, they're living completely different lives than everyone else. It's like its own society. There are like international friends who are also rich, but they're all kind of in this like same social group, and everything's like the same for them. So I liked that point. The thing that frustrated me the most, the character I liked the least, surprisingly, was not Bernie Madoff, although I did hate his storyline. I didn't like Paul. I found Paul extremely frustrating. I interpreted his actions as like calculated murder. I thought, oh, this girl that I like rejected me. I'm gonna give them bad drugs. He might not have meant to kill them, but like, he years later talking to the therapist was like, how was I to know? I didn't know. But I took that as like deep denial. And I was like, you're just like a terrible person, and you got rejected, and you got like hurt. And I was waiting for there to be a confrontation for him to see Annika again. And they even brought up Annika other times. Like, there was that like shitty rich guy that was like, I was producing this band and they didn't get it, and blah, 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 and one day she'll come begging back to me, blah, blah, blah. But like, that was it. So I was waiting for that to come back, and instead it just felt like he got away with like a crime, and then they paid way more attention to the fact that he used Vincent's videotapes. And I'm like, that's what you feel guilty about? You killed someone. I hated him, and I thought that he was a creep. And he also was constantly being like, I don't hate my sister. Remember, you don't hate Vincent. You don't hate Vincent. I was like, you obviously do. You're obsessed with her, and it's creepy. I didn't like him, and I was just waiting for there to be some like terrible thing that happened as a result, and it never did, because he was just like a sad boring guy.
I know what you mean. I really wanted that character to come back too, especially when we did get that mention of, yeah, I had a record deal offer for her, but she's just like doing coffee shops on her own and barely making any money. Like, what a loser and stuff. And yeah, I really thought maybe it was going to come back when he seemed to be throwing it out there. Well, in that final sort of conversation, that like interview where he was like saying the name of the band and putting it out there, like almost like making penance, like, look, I ripped off the band, I ripped off the video, like, I don't deserve any of this. But yeah, you know what, I hope that someone else recommends Station 11 and you trust them and sometime you read it. So maybe post-pandemic, when things settle down, or maybe you'll at least watch the show and then you'll want to
I wish I had read it first.
Yeah,
because I just feel like this, I don't know, having this be my first book, I just don't feel that inspired.
Okay, fair enough. Melissa, are you with us, Melissa Z?
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Just living the dream out here. But no, I feel like I'm gonna undermine you, Jeff, but I can't really defend my position anymore because it's been so long since I read Station 11, but I was not a fan of Station 11. I've kind of felt like that one didn't grab me. I didn't feel a connection with that one either. So for what it's worth, for anybody who's still debating whether or not to read Station 11, there's my 2 cents. But no, I'm going to join in and also fangirl over Rebecca. I just loved, that was how I felt the whole story, where I don't like the structure of it. Like, I don't know where we're going. I don't know. It really like grabbed me with those first couple pages. And I apologize, I joined a little bit late tonight, so I hope I'm not rehashing any ground we already covered. But like, the first couple of pages just drew me in. I was like, ooh, it's going to be, the mystery, there's intrigue, this woman falling through the water, and you're getting all these teases about, these dark elements of her life that are gonna, and did she get pushed? Did she fall? And like, where, like, what kind of boat is she on? Like, I was so excited. And then you slide into that like 50-page like downer of Paul story, and I'm like, who's this guy? Like, what are we doing here? So I kind of felt like every time it shifted, I was like, who are these people? Like, what is their role in this story? It kind of felt like everybody was connected in some way, but sometimes you could tell how, and sometimes you couldn't. And I was never sure, like, is this person or this event, is it going to be important? Is it going to matter later? Yeah. And so that I just remember thinking like you couldn't get a hold on anybody or any kind of thread and keep a hold of it. So it felt like, right, I remember thinking I thought at one point, I'm like, it's just all ghosts and glass and fog. Like, I don't know, yeah, right. I can't find my way. So I just, that, idea of something being shattered and trying to be pieced together later, was great. But yeah, and I liked, and that section in the middle, that was, I think, did they call it the chorus? It was someone from the hedge fund or whatever it was. And I don't think they were ever named. And they were like, oh, they're all of a sudden talking in first person, like when we learned this and when we did that. And it was so distracting because I was like, who is this? Who is this person? Like, do I know? Like, are they? And then they kind of disappeared, and it went back to, it was just kind of all over the place. But it did have some themes. I'm like, I guess that's, such is life. I mean, people kind of like blend in and out of each other's lives, and may have one tiny role that has a big impact, or may have a big role that, is immaterial. Like, okay, like, I guess if you're trying to make a case for how life is, there it is. But yeah, and a theme that I think you kind of started touching on it, Jeff, was just all the different ways that people are haunted in this book. Like, everybody's haunted by something, whether it's a person or words that come back to bite them in the end. So that was kind of a neat element. And the thought of like theft, and not just, right, like of Vincent's materials, but like, all the lives that were stolen, on all the potential lives that were stolen by the Ponzi scheme, and just kind of that thought of like all the different ways that a life could go, how many different paths you could take. and just kind of how some people are able to slide from one to another. It was kind of interesting, but not enough, I don't think, to really like Rebecca said, like stick the landing. I was like, it wasn't awful, but like I also felt at the end like, well, what was the point of that? And then I got sad. I was like, this is just a sad story. Like, what's the point of anything? So I don't know. So again, interesting enough, but yeah, it wasn't my favorite.
All right, fair enough. Thank you, Melissa. And you can claim to be like that. See, I told you Station 11 wasn't good. This wasn't good. I don't know why we keep reading this author. I love it. I love it. You get to be the naysayer. and now people are looking back on, maybe we should just read what Melissa wants to read. We should. So speaking of someone that I do what they tell me, I see Rachel Kamen has her hand up. Rachel, I'm unmuting you. Talk to us, please.
Okay, so I feel like I need to explain what I meant by stick the landing. Because
as a former gymnast, tell us.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that I loved the book, but it's such a complex story. There are so many characters, and like, so seemingly like I couldn't even imagine how these things could come together in any sort of way. I mean, even like when there was like, I don't know, a quarter of the book left or an eighth of the book left, I'm like, what is going to happen? How can this, Madoff story and Paul and her dead mom, and like, how is all of these different spheres going to come together? And I feel like I'm a person that likes things to be tied up nicely at the end. And I do feel like, yes, I think I love Rebecca's image of that, just shards of glass, like broken glass. And I do feel like things did kind of come together at the end in a way that was somewhat satisfying for me. I think the book overall was not super satisfying to me, but I do like how it sort of came together a bit at the end. The one, as complex as the story was, the one piece that I wish I would have gotten more of was about her mom. Maybe a reveal about how her mom died. I know she drowned, but what happened? How did she drown? What, did she just fall out of the boat, or what, how did that happen? That was like kind of a piece that I was hoping would be resolved by the end. And unless I missed it, I don't remember ever finding out how her mom died.
Good point. I don't recall any return to that either. But you stuck the landing on your comments, Rachel. So thanks for that. Now, no, but what it does, it brings up the question for me is why that particular ghost? Why does she see? Is it Ella? Is that her name at the end? Who is the other ghost that she sees when she becomes a ghost?
Olivia?
Because it felt like a little bit of a disconnect to me. Like, why would these two be seeing each other in that? Do you have an answer for that, Lisa? No, you just jump in with.
But Andrew is yelling Olivia.
Olivia. Okay, that's who. Yes, Olivia, the painter, right?
Yep.
The painter who painted Paul's, who painted Jonathan's brother. Right. So why does Vincent see her, of all people? Like, when she's kind of going through, and it's like the first ghost that then she sees, and then she kind of goes to different points in her life. If anyone has thoughts on that, let me know. I see Gretchen has her hand up though. Gretchen, are you with us?
I am with us, and I don't have an answer to that question.
That's okay. That's
Part
okay.
of it is I'm not all the way done with the book yet, but
okay.
I had a somewhat, maybe an interesting perspective on this sort of disjointed narrative. I listened to the vast majority of this book today because I was driving. I was in the car for about 5 hours, and even with that kind of, investment over, a very short period of time, I felt like there was just too much time between the stories. Like you'd forget who, you'd come to this, little piece about somebody and you can't even remember what they were talking about with that particular character the last time we heard from them. And you know what? I really don't think it should be that hard. I mean, you shouldn't have to work that hard on reading a book that's supposed to be for fun. And I think that's where this fell down, is that it just, I don't mind these stories where you have all these different characters and there's different kind of narratives and stories, and they all kind of end up coming together and fitting together at some way in the end, whether it's good or bad or not completely satisfying. But there was just too much time, and it took too long to develop, and it was very difficult as a reader or listener, in my case, to keep up with where this person was and where they fit and what they were even doing the last time you heard their name.
Gretchen, I completely agree with you. There were a lot of points at which I had to ask Rachel, like, okay, what now, who, where are we? And she was on it. She could explain it to me, but in listening to it, I got lost a few times too. It was a confusing listen. And yeah, I could imagine listening to that much of it in a row, even I agree. It was out there, and it was hard. It made you work for it. And the amount of work you put in for it, maybe you weren't rewarded as much as you wanted to be. But thanks. I see a fresh hand or two before I'm gonna, Evelyn, I'll come back to you. Fiona, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm calling on you, Miss Mouse. Fiona?
Yeah,
Hi.
Fiona. I don't have the best lighting situation. I'm new to Books and Bars, but
Welcome.
I was a member in like 2011 or 2012, I think. So
Those are what we call our salad days. If anyone could tell me exactly what salad days are, I'd like to refer to having salad days, although I'm never quite sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Are the salad days where you have enough money that you can also order a salad, or is it you only have enough money to get a salad? It's one of those two. And I want salad days to be a good thing, because I want to refer back to it as in our salad days. So awesome. Yes, thank you for reminding me of our salad days, 2011.
Yes, so I'm returned from way back then, and I see in the comments and in the discussion, I always think it's really interesting to pay attention to how a book begins and ends, and it begins and ends with Vincent's death. And I think, in my mind, like the question of what happened to her mom is largely unanswered, but I think that she does a way of answering that by exposing to us how Vincent died. So we learned that very clearly it was an accident that Vincent dies. And then when she's a ghost, she goes and meets her mom again. And I think there was an offhanded comment like, it was an accident. Of course it was an accident, or she never would have left me on purpose. And so I think that was kind of an interesting way of it's this central conflict throughout Vincent's life of the loss of her mother that's kind of unresolved. And then that's how the book itself resolves. And that's an answer that Vincent gets as a ghost after she's passed away. So I thought that was interesting. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about was Walter a little bit more, that he, somebody said they thought Vincent was the hero or was the lucky one. I read it as Walter was the lucky one, that he was never really chasing fame or money. He was chasing contentment in a way. And so he ended up inhabiting this place of a failed path towards acquiring wealth or showing your wealth is this empty hotel. And so he lives out the rest of his days contented and alone in this hotel. I thought was kind of neat.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think that it's interesting that he is, I think, the only one of the characters who ends up happiest and best, and I think I've seen the author say that she talked about how it's because he didn't run away from reality, or he's like the only one who just stuck with it, faced it, accepted it, and I don't know, but it's a weird sort of message then in a way. It's like you want to try to better yourself or make a difference, and you end up, I don't know, falling off a boat and dying. But I don't know.
Is Walter the only person who doesn't see ghosts?
I
don't remember Walter seeing any ghosts.
That's a good question. I don't remember it either, but I don't know if he's the only one who doesn't. Yeah, in all the different versions, different kind of permutations of what a ghost is. But yeah, Walter is definitely enjoying his salad days, which it was confirmed for me is the peak or heyday of something per Oxford. Thank you, Evelyn. Which I said sadly was about 13 years ago for us, but not my family or relationship. I just mean books and bars, like in person and all that good stuff. So, but thank you, Fiona, for coming and trying the online version. I hope we see you again on the online version. Thank you. I see Sandy Batts has her hand up. Sandy, talk to us.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes,
I just wanted to go back to a comment that Gretchen made, because I don't usually participate in the conversation. I just like to hear what everybody else says, but I feel validated that she didn't like the audio version because I thought it was very hard to listen to. It's one of those few books that was a hard listen, because I kept having to rewind it, thinking like, did it fast forward? Did I miss something? Particularly at the beginning, because it just leaves you in a vague space of what's going on. And then again, with the character development. So I feel better now, not being the only person out there, not getting it. But I wanted to hear more about the hotel, because if it's called the Glass Hotel, I guess I was hoping for more descriptions, because when it did talk about it, it did sound like a beautiful location and just the environment. And when I listened to it, which was shortly after it was released, I just wanted to know more about it, because that was my escape, not so much the story. But I did really like Station 11, so I was hoping for more from this one, and I didn't get it.
Sandy, I agree with you too. The audiobook, it should have been fantastic, because this is an opportunity to help clarify. Oftentimes when you have this many different characters all over the place, an audiobook can help you, because a good reader will do different voices or let you know, kind of ground you where you are, who's talking, where this is. Even if you miss just a little bit, you're like, oh, okay, well, I know it's because of the way it's being read, and this one was not. It was it was a rough audiobook. I agree, and it could have been fantastic. It was a prime part for the right reader, and it just wasn't. And thank you for bringing it up, because yes, the title of this book and why is it called Glass Hotel when it does not seem to be that much of what it's about? What are we missing here? Why is it called Glass Hotel? What does it really mean? What is the Glass Hotel in a larger scale here? How does it relate to all of this? Are we living in a glass hotel? Is it like a glass house that you shouldn't throw stones at someone else's? What does it mean? Somebody tell me. What do you got? If you got something on that, raise your hand. We're still also looking for, what's the point? What's the takeaway? What'd you get from it? I see a few repeat hands, but I just saw a visual of a hand shoot up in the air. So I'm going to go back to Rachel Kamen. Rachel, what do you got?
Okay, so I've been thinking about this, and I don't know that I have the answer for sure about the hotel, but I'm wondering if, so first of all, the hotel is only accessible by water. And there seems to be a lot of things related to water in the story. The shipping, a couple of deaths on water. Like, water is definitely a theme here. And I'm wondering if there's transitions in life that happen through water in the story. So is that I don't know if the hotel is like the dwelling place for these souls that are in transition. I know her mom's is there on the shore when she shows up as after she falls off the boat. So I don't know. I have this sort of image of it being like a hotel for dead people, kind of like it's like this transition place or something. I don't know. I'm still working it out and I need help.
No, I like it. I like it. It's sort of like Bosom Buddies, except instead of a hotel for women, okay, it's a hotel for dead people. Imagine if Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari had to pretend to be dead to be in Bosom Buddies. It would be a different show. They probably wouldn't have used the Billy Joel song "My Life" as the theme song for it, because it would have been too weird and ironic if it was a hotel for dead people. Okay, and then he's doing this sunny, 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 sunny. So good, Bosom Buddies. All right. I like it, Rachel. Evelyn's got her hand up. Evelyn, are you still with us? Talk to us.
Hi. Yeah, I really like what you said, Rachel. I think that was awesome. I also thought there's the other hotel in the book, which is the Dubai Hotel, that gets mentioned a couple of times. Jonathan, sees that hotel and keeps on going back to that. And Vincent, that's the first hotel. Well, that's the right when she dies, she goes to that hotel as well. So there could be two hotels. I don't know. But yeah, so that's another possibility. And yeah, like it's like what you said, Rachel. It's sort of like a hotel is sort of where people pass through, right? To go from one place to another, or like in the case of the Glass Hotel in British Columbia, it was sort of a place to get away from something and just like a stasis, a respite. Yeah, I really like what you said. And then I just did want to mention, I initially raised my hand really quick because Melissa, and I believe also in the chat, Anna maybe, talked about that first person plural, which this is the second book we've had really recently that had it, and I've never read first person plural before, but that we write on Sticks book was also first person plural, so very interesting. All right, that's all.
Good point. And I like what you're saying. I get this idea of the hotel. Maybe it's, a hotel is something, it's a place that you're only supposed to be at temporarily. It's between things. You're between this and that. You're at the hotel, except for Walter, who is there all the time and ends up being happy. So what is it saying? Is that you should going back to what is she trying to say? That we should constantly be in the place of change, or in that, like, the place that you wouldn't normally think is comfortable is actually the place where you should reside, instead of trying to find that ultimate peace and comfort. If you just accept that, you're going to live in a state of, this isn't really mine. I'm just here temporarily, that sort of a thing. And I'm going to make the most of it. Is that what the joy of Walter is, and being at a hotel? I don't know. But I see Rebecca's hand is back up. Rebecca, talk to us.
I wanted to bring up what I thought was the saddest part of the story was Leon and Marie. They were the people who lost money and had to drive around in the RV. And I guess, was he the one that later on was called back to work to help investigate? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Again, these. They were good people, and they didn't deserve what happened to them. And I think that was a good thing that she brought up the cost of being ripped off by a criminal. But they never, again, they did not get a satisfying conclusion. It wasn't, Leon tried to do the right thing about reporting what happened, and then it was all like shoveled under the rug, and it was like, it's not going to make any difference. And then they were just totally dropped. I don't know if they're still in their RV driving around, or if anything happened and proved to their life. I got invested, I guess, in what was going to happen. And I thought, okay, finally here we have someone who's going to make a difference or bring together some of these threads and figure out, investigate Vincent's, and it just, I don't know, it actually, I guess I'm feeling pissed off is really what I am. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. And I don't really care when somebody wrote in the chat, I don't have to like all the characters. I certainly don't, but I have to be invested in what the characters are doing. And I didn't.
Jeff, I'm gonna interject. I'm gonna use my right to interject because I can't raise my hand.
It's one of the few benefits of being the co-host. Thank you, Angela, for co-hosting again. It doesn't come with many perks, but one of the perks is you can shut anybody up and jump in, including me. So do it.
I would agree, Rebecca, and a lot of people have said it. There's like a lot of loose ends and things like that. I think for me, I struggled with the fact that they could have spent more time ending a couple of these stories. If she would have left out some of the people in the Ponzi scheme that amounted to nothing more than I was part of a Ponzi scheme. And it seemed like a lot of extra effort to try to add in tie-ins. Like, oh, I'm bringing up Annika again, just because I feel like I want to bring up Annika again. And bringing back ghosts that don't have, he's like, oh, and then there was this other guy that I think was dead, but I can't tell when in the courtyard of the prison. I'm like, why even mention that person if you don't know who it is? And it just seemed like there was constantly, I have to bring this back to something earlier, even though I don't have a resolution or this doesn't tie into anything relevant. I thought it was an easy read. It kept me interested, but in the end, I was like, there were too many stories that didn't go anywhere. I did think it was interesting, though, that Olivia, Marie, and Leon, the people who were taken, and I do feel genuinely bad for them, I feel like they were better suited to bounce back, though. They're like, we're going to leave our house and hop in an RV. And they're like, we got to spend time in a beach and spend time together. So they found a lot more positive than the rich people, which I think goes back to 2 weeks ago in that book, where we also talked about the wealthy sister versus the poor sister and who seemed to have a more fulfilling life and that. And sometimes it comes out that you're just suited to survive and make the best of things better when maybe you're not used to having all of the monies.
Thanks for jumping in. How'd that feel?
I like jumping in.
You can do it again. You can do it again. But before that, I see Lisa and Andrew have their hand up. Who's it going to be, Lisa or Andrew? Can't wait to find out.
It's Lisa this time.
Oh, thank God.
I know, that's what I was thinking too. So I just had a friend get a book published.
Wait. Can we give a slow clap? Or
well, kind of. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great. Congratulations to your friend.
It's probably like a mean slow clap because it's not like it's not like, oh, she's a superstar slow clap. So
this is being recorded.
I know. But she's worked on this book for years and years and years, and she had it edited and changed so many times. And so going through this book process with her recently and talking about it, and then reading this book, and I was like, I really feel like maybe this was like Station 11 was so successful, you need to get something else done. And she pushed out a book that needed to be like edited out or something. Like all of us are like, this didn't make sense. And why are these characters here? And almost like it didn't get edited right to clean up the story better.
Huh. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like maybe that there's some reason that it's not as tidy as Station 11. It's clearly a different like genre focus. I get that. But I don't know. I guess I'm feeling a little sympathetic to Emily. Like maybe that was part of it, is like it got pushed without getting as much attention through editing and the publisher that it could have gotten to make it a better story and clean up some of the stuff. Like, why do you have all these characters in here? Clean this up or whatever. Anyway, that was one thing. the other thing was that if anyone's interested, The Wizard of Lies is a really interesting movie just about the Bernie Madoff thing.
Robert De Niro and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Per Andrew. Like if you didn't, it's not the book.
Does De Niro play the Scarecrow or the Cowardly Lion?
Correct. He plays a wonderful Bernie Madoff, and the movie is totally boring. You would never want to watch it, but because you've read this book,
great selling. I want to go back to also, wait, does your friend's book need to be edited too? I didn't get the connection to your friend's book.
My friend's book was good. My friend's book was very good.
Okay, so to be clear, your friend's book is good. This movie is terrible, but we should watch it.
Yeah, well, just because it gives a really, now that you have this like background, and if you put it together with the Glass Hotel, it'll make a lot of sense to you. And
okay. So a book that most of us didn't like, we should put it together with a movie that's not good, and the two of them together with your friend's unedited book are what? Our December?
Yeah, it brings you from like a 2 and a 2 to like a 4.
We can do better than that. We can do better than that. But you know what? Okay, but thank you. Thanks for the recommendation. I don't know the Wizard of Lies. I've seen other things with those actors that I like. I don't, again, but your friend's book is well edited or not?
No, it was, but my gosh, it went through so many revisions. I mean, it took her like 8 years of revisions and working with it with book groups, with other writers and
well, Lisa, it's interesting you say that, because one of the things that that Mandel talked about was that actually this book took longer than most of her books. It took 5 years, and she said that usually she cranks out a book in 2.5. And she couldn't believe that this one took 5 years, and part of it was that there's so many different things and she doesn't outline. But yeah,
well, maybe that's
but
why
I think to your point though, she had such success with Station 11 and was so acclaimed with the National Book Award nominee that maybe an editor or a publisher was like, you kind of have a pass on this next one, or like we don't have as stringent of, like, well, she hit something, so whatever she wrote next, is gonna be okay or good, and they didn't maybe take as much time with it, or they just trusted her and didn't edit it as much. I don't know. But yeah, I see Melissa, you're back with us. Talk to us, Melissa.
I was actually just gonna put my hand back down because I got so
bored by what Lisa was saying.
Other people that I
with
forgot
all those.
what I was gonna say. No, but I think I was kind of trying to. Someone had said something that made me think of this other theme that I felt had been building, but then I kind of like lost. Like it seemed to kind of lose steam. But this idea of like how decent people might do really indecent things, like how they might come to do something that is, they're a really truly decent person, but then they do something that's just like, and I can't remember Leon, he seems to be such a great person, and he's, and he loves the shipping industry and he loves what he does, and he seems really honest. And then, how he, kind of fudged this really important, it's like, somebody died and he makes a decision that you're surprised by, and then all the way, back to other people who, in the Ponzi storyline, there are some characters who it's, we all know what we do here, and there seems to be that one guy that seemed to maybe genuinely not know what they did there, and kind of how he gets swept up into things. So I kind of felt like for a while there, she was kind of building on this theme of like, right, how you may, with the best of intentions, kind of slowly get sucked down a path, and how some people may take responsibility and others don't. But then, yeah, I kind of felt like it fizzled. So, so I think that's what I was thinking at the time the hand went up.
Well, I'm glad we caught you before it went down, because I always want everyone to bring the thing up, because if you're thinking it, someone else probably is too, and don't be afraid to be the one to bring it up. Plus, there's not that many hands up, so you got a chance. But Pete's hand is back up. Talk to us, Pete.
Oh, hey.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. That one thing that I thought she did write well. This Kingdom of Money or Land of Money, where I do in I'll just say this about me, but not about me, but is that I happen to know I know many very rich people, but I notice like when you're in, yeah, but it has nothing to do with me. I just got the heater in the background.
Could you invite some of them to Books and Bars?
Well, I'd be happy to, but the thing is too, is like there's a duality of rich people, which I think is really cool that she writes well, is that there are those that understand what they have and that feels like privilege, and and you see in their home, they're like the backgrounds of all of you folks, like they have homey things, they have shelves of books, and they're thinking about legacy, but it breaks down in my experience about half. Their homes are like hotels. They're soulless, and I think she wrote about that really effectively, where I think there's a lot to criticize in this book, but I think there's a number of points where she really landed on something very cool, is that the fact that Jonathan, especially once he's in prison, re-envisioning his life, and even though his mind's breaking up, it's almost like it doesn't matter. It's easy enough for him to transport his current experience into the soulless experience that he thinks has value, and I think that's where I think one of the things about this book, that's a great segue into, I think she tries to touch on too much, didn't quite knit it all together, but I think she's so talented at what she does, and poor Kara, it's like I'd hope that you'd get a better experience with another one, but I wouldn't want to torture you a second time, because I haven't even finished this book, and I was barely interested in finishing it, and I was hoping this discussion would help me along. But I just think that and another thing, that in case you feel bad because you're not rich, don't worry, it's better, because the people, like when you're generally when you're not, when you're just normal like the rest of us, it's all about community. It's this kind of thing. You're rich in everything that actually matters. So
you're like Jimmy Stewart at the end of It's a Wonderful Life. Spoiler alert. But you're the richest man in Bedford Falls. It's how I feel. It's how I feel on my birthday every year, like the richest man on Facebook. So
yeah, and you're in Kingfield.
I'm the richest man in Kingfield because of all my community and my friends. That's right, Pete. Thank you. But Pete, you know what? You gave me a great idea, because Kara's hand is up next, and I think that she should be. But I don't want to. Do you have something more, Pete? I don't want to.
No, I don't. I hate hogging. My wife is mad at me.
You're not hogging. You're doing a great job, and thanks for having the heater out. Okay, Kara, back to you. And here's my thing. So I think a plan is forming. We're gonna make you read Station 11. We're gonna make you watch that Wizard of Lies movie that Lisa wants you to watch. What else can we pile on that would be really painful for you to do? Maybe like over the deepest part of winter. Are you still with us, Kara?
The Wizard of Lies movie would do me in. I have no interest in Bernie Madoff. I don't know if I could make it past that. I just kind of a thought occurred to me, and this isn't a theme I necessarily dislike, but you're right. So many of our books this year kind of have the theme about how like money doesn't make you happy, and it's the people who don't have money who are the happiest. And I mean, I do agree that like rich people are morally inferior, and I love, reading about how they're unhappy, but like I do kind of wonder at the like constant portrayal of like poverty as like, but they're the real happy ones. I felt like the book we had about the babysitter who was harassed in that store, the name is escaping
Such a Fun
me.
Age.
Such a Fun Age. Yep. Had like the most realistic portrayal of it. because once she got a stable job and a stable paycheck, everything was great for her. She was like, that's what I wanted. Like, they didn't like fetishize her poverty. Like, they never acted like she's happier, you know, because she's poor. Like, in fact, they had the white savior, like, awful lady fetishizing her and being like, man, you know, her life is so great. And really, she was just struggling. And once she had stability, she was so happy, and like she kind of got what she wanted, and she didn't need to, I don't know. And obviously she didn't end up rich, but I think like that's a point that more books could make. Like, I think if all of us got an extra like $40,000 a year, we would find that our happiness increased significantly.
Yeah, well, I mean, right. They talk about, you know, there's a certain level at which once all of your needs are met, you know, like maybe the person that makes, you know, X amount of money, you don't get exponentially happier when you have like tack on hundreds and hundreds and more thousands to that. It's you get to a certain point, all the needs are met. You don't have to worry about certain things, and then you can just enjoy, and then it doesn't add on those extra problems and stuff. In the chat, we are talking about some books like Such a Fun Age and some of our favorites of this year as we are closing this year. You know, we have 2 more in December. I know we have a couple hands. I'm not wrapping up, but I just want to segue a little bit here that I listed some of my faves, and I do think it was we read some really good ones this year, and doing it twice a month has led us to maybe, you know, more opportunities. I really liked Lager Queen of Minnesota. I love talking with the author on that one. Watchmen I had read before, but I always like picking a graphic novel. I like The Dutch House, that blew my mind. And I'd never read Ann Patchett. I can't read more. I loved it. Circe, Madeline Miller. Nothing to See Here. I haven't laughed harder at a book. And The Vanishing Half from last month. I absolutely loved. And The Vanishing Half, it's kind of the way I felt a little bit in The Glass Hotel. Like it wasn't working for me at first, but I loved it by the end, and I love so much about The Vanishing Half. So those are some of my favorites from this year. I like Fleischman in Trouble a lot. I think we'll have a great discussion, and my fingers are so crossed. But I'm worried if it bombs. But Ready Player 2, I mean, it could be, you know, it could be the greatest thing in the world for me, or I could be really sad. We'll see. We're going to enjoy it together to round out this year. And then we've already picked the first two for January. We have, you know what they are, right? The John Irving book, the Hotel New Hampshire, is the second one. That's January 20th. And January 6th is Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. So double murder mystery. So that's January. And then I have a bunch of great ideas, and I hope that we'll continue twice a month, at least through the current times that we're in, maybe through, you know, like the spring or something. We'll see. And then I've talked about how, you know, maybe once we can go back in person, maybe there's a live version, and maybe the same book is on video for people that can't be there or something like that. But you know, we'll see. I listed a bunch of these. They're in that bookshop link that I have. So please check those out. But Rebecca, you're still with us. Your hand is still up. Talk to us, please.
I wanted to agree with many of your choices. This has been a great year for books. And one of the reasons why I liked a lot of the books this year, I think, were because, one, there were a lot of female characters. Two, there were a lot of diverse characters. And it brought me into the places that I was already kind of investigating because of the shit pile that 2020 is. Sorry, I'm making this not safe for children. Anyway, this book was incredibly white. It was white people problems for the most part, and to an extent, rich people problems for the most part. And I guess maybe I've lost a little bit of empathy, and perhaps I needed that protagonist that would bring me in to make me care. So anyway, I have appreciated that most of the other books this year really brought that issue home, or, you know, that for me.
Thanks, Rebecca. And I'm glad that we agree on a lot of the picks from this year. And I do think that we have had a chance to read a bit more women, a bit more diverse authors, and we've definitely benefited from that. And I hope to continue that. So anytime if I get into a stretch, there might be a stretch where you're like, I can't believe we just read like, 2 or 3 white guys in a row. Just know I plan out these things, and the list is long and I want your guys' input. So it's not just the ones that I want to read. So I really do listen. I know Sue is in here tonight. Sue has been trying to get me to do John Irving, who happens to be a white guy, but we haven't read John Irving, and I'm so excited that we're finally going to read him. And she got me to read one of his that I had never read because I love like 3 or 4 of his are some of my favorite books. And then I found another one, with Hotel New Hampshire that is up there with those other ones. So yeah, we'll keep picking good ones, hopefully, and diverse ones. But I see Lisa and Andrew are back. I'm kind of hoping this time it's Andrew, but you know what? We'll see. Lisa, Andrew, talk to us. No effective with you, Lisa. Oh, it's good. It's Andrew. That's what I wanted. Speaking of white guys, look at this guy.
So I wanted to talk quickly about Paul because Carr, I think, brought up a good point just about what a despicable character he was. But one of the things I thought about this book was, Vincent comes off as this character that is pretty sympathetic in the end. I mean, she's got lots of problems, but she's self-reflective and that sort of thing. And it seemed like if I was the author and I was writing about myself, I would write myself as Vincent. And then I would write the person that I can't stand but can't get rid of, like Paul. So part of me thinks like this is what the author thinks about herself, and that Paul is some kind of real person in her life that is really problematic for real, but she can't quite get rid of. And the end of the story where she shows up outside of rehab, and visits him and then forgives him and says, I was corrupt too. I just felt like that was just like the biggest F you that you could give some person that, you had been involved with, couldn't get rid of, had wronged you in many different ways and wasn't very redeemable. And, you're just like, yeah, it's okay. You weren't quite that bad. So I really did feel like this was kind of like a cathartic thing for her. Like maybe she was writing about, and maybe that's why it was so white. She was really writing about some things that were going on in her own head and life, when Vincent becomes dependent on this man who turns out to just be awful. I just felt like that's a story that's been told before, someone who makes a deal with the devil and, for their own comfort, gives up their own, ideals. Who hasn't kind of given it up a little bit in that way for their own comfort? And, it felt like someone saying, kind of admitting, yeah, that's kind of me, but I'm not as bad as Paul. Steal those videos and that sort of thing. Anyway, I mean, I thought that those two, well, I didn't like Paul. I thought that those two characters were the most interesting part of the book, and the part that I wanted to know more about. And the disappointing part was that there was so much other stuff going on that you didn't really dig into that piece. Anyway, Cara, I thought it was a good point that you made there.
And thank you again, Andrew. And even though you didn't want to help co-host tonight, you're doing a great job. So I appreciate your
I admit my faults. Comments. Lazy.
Yeah. There's well, it's pub night, I mean, it's pub night. Remember, Books and Bars used to be a
Trust
pub
me,
night.
You really don't want me having that power. It's not
okay. I thought you were gonna say I don't want to eat anything on your pub night.
This is it's best for everybody. I'm just a participant.
Now, does anyone have anything else on what they think the author was trying to say, or maybe what you take away and why it was called Glass Hotel? Anything? Feel free to jump on in and let us know. Otherwise, I'll put a few more notes here in the chat to remind you of what's coming up for December. And someone asked, and yes, of course, I will update the website. We also have a newsletter. I put stuff on Facebook and Twitter. Like the National saying, I am easy to find. So if you have any questions or you feel like you don't know what's going on next, just send me an email or anything. I mean, I'll respond, and I love hearing from you guys on what you wanted to read. Thanks for sharing all your perspectives tonight on the Glass Hotel. I feel like, I mean, this was a great discussion, even though many of us maybe had issues with the book itself. I see Pete's hand is back up. Pete, talk to us.
All right, real quick.
Yeah.
Where I was about to type this, but it's easier to just say it. I was thinking glass houses. If you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. And if you look at all these characters, it's it sort of lands in, if you're one of these people, restrict your comments on how others live. You really are in a glass house.
I like it, Pete, and you brought us to our second and final Billy Joel reference of the night with his great album Glass Houses.
I love that. That was
yes, my life